Shalom and welcome again to another edition of Secrets of Meaning, the podcast TV arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. Thank you very, very much for joining us. I'm your host, Rabbi Richard Adress. And as you know, these podcasts are designed to explore some of the issues that relate to us, our families, our communities in the area of this revolution in longevity. And we're going to have a conversation today about an issue that continues to come up in conversations with friends and family and also in the media. And we are very honored and pleased to welcome Shannon Miller, an elder care attorney from Florida, from Gainesville.
Shalom.
A Gator fan, and we're not talking about football right now. Okay. Thank you very much. The subject of this conversation, and Shannon, thank you very, very much for joining us, is this explosion, and that may be a little bit rabbinic hyperbole, but from our conversations before, it doesn't seem to be, in the issue of scams, scams leading to abuse, different types of abuse with older adults. So first of all, thank you for joining us. I really do appreciate it. There's a statistic that I came across in doing some homework for this, that 1 in 5 adults over the age of 70 in the United States of America can expect to be exploited or scammed. Is that true?
In the next year.
In the next
year. Yes. So take a mental picture of what that looks like.
What does that mean? How does this happen?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Let me start off by saying that, scams and exploitation end up costing about $60 billion a year in the United States. That is an astounding number. It's almost twice the amount of what McDonald's grosses in a year. So every time somebody is going to McDonald's, double it, and that's the amount of money that people are giving away to scammers or exploiters. So what we see is a very organized crime. And what we're seeing is really a boldness among exploiters and scammers across the United States. But more practically for your listeners, everyone should understand, and they probably do. I always ask this question: do you think your information is on the dark web? And very rarely do people say no, because your information is on the dark web. So there are people looking at how to reach you by phone, by email. Your information is there. And what happens is the value of your information becomes more and more valuable and can be resold when you click the phishing link, when you pick up the phone to talk to the scammer, when you respond to that text message that's been issued by a scammer. The value of your information goes up on the dark web. And the reason for that is that we know the number of times that a person is scammed or exploited. The average number of times is 7.
7?
7. Yep, 7 times. So
Wow.
Typically, and the values go up. The average, this is going to blow your mind, the average value of a particular victim who has been scammed, the value of the total amount that they usually lose, $17,500.
And that you're right. That's unimaginable.
Shocking. I had a client come in yesterday. She told me she had been scammed out of $170,000. We have one client, a lady who was involved in a romance scam. She gave away $2.5 million over a period of 2 years. We have another client who was involved in an investment scam, and he gave away $10 million over a 3-month time period. So, the fact that average number is $17,500, you take into account all of these bigger dollar figures, it's still a very shocking number. So, it is an epidemic out there. And it's important to understand that we now have brain research that tells us that as we age, and, this is based in science, as we age, we are seeing these brain changes that make us more susceptible to The second part of this equation is that, most older people have more resources and assets. I mean, the baby boomers are, they have 52% of the wealth in our country. So they are starting to become more targeted for these scams. That's the second thing. The third thing is, and this creates the perfect storm, as we age, we become more trusting. And again, this is scientifically based. It's not anecdotal. So the science is telling us, we have this propensity as we age, and it's not everyone. It is not everyone. So, there's a very famous research study that came out in 2017. And again, the science is immature on the exploitable brain. We have a lot of science on the incapacitated brain. And that would be the brain where you can't make decisions about, a healthcare informed consent, making a medical decision. You can't decide where you're going to live. You can't make financial decisions. Those are incapacity of the brain. And we have a lot of testing that's been, tried and truly tested, such as mini mental status exams, MOCA tests, that tell us, the brain is functioning to such a deficit, you can't continue to make these decisions. The exploitable brain, however, is that 10 years before incapacity. So what we're seeing is, brain changes over a 20-year time period. And at about year 10, we see incapacity. Then eventually we'll see a death event, usually 7 to 10 years later. The predating of that time before the brain becomes incapacitated, is that time for exploitability. So back to this study, and I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, just feel free to jump in. This study, very small study size, it's 36 people. And what we didn't. What the researchers did is they exposed everyone in the study to a scam. And about half of them took the bait. But we put every single one of the members of that study group under MRI. And what was found was that there was a thinning of the cortical insula. It's like your temple and a little bit back. A thinning of the cortical insula in the brain in 100% of the people who fell victim to the
So
scam.
are you telling me that there's and I may be using the wrong words, so you'll correct me. Are you telling me that there's scientific evidence that if there's a connection between a deterioration of the brain or a part of the brain and my ability to fall prey or be a victim to scams? Am I understanding that correctly?
Exactly. And it's really two things that are happening. The first is your inability to assess risk. The second thing is the inability to tell the difference between the truth and a lie.
You triggered in me this about a month and a half, 2 months ago on one of the streaming services. We saw this movie called Thelma, which I think, as I mentioned, was in the movie theaters for maybe a day before it went to streaming. But it's a story of a 90-some-year-old woman who gets scammed. And, of course, it's a movie, so she goes out and, tries to get her money back. But the scam was a telephone call, probably using some sort of voice manipulation from her grandson. I'm in an accident. I'm in the hospital. I'm arrested. I need X numbers of thousands of dollars right away. And she panicked. And is this my sense listening to you is this is not necessarily Hollywood, but it's reality.
No, the grandparent scam, it was incredibly prevalent about 4 years ago. It's less prevalent now because people know about it. So, the key to that one, to defending yourself on that one, hang up the phone and call your grandson. And you'll find that he's not in the hospital and that he's not in jail and that, all is well.
What's with this? Again, there are radio advertisements that we about IRS scams, Social Security scams. You run in. My sense is that you run into this as well. Could you walk us through what are these? Sure. What are these?
So I'm going to add on another layer here. A lot of times what will happen is you'll get an email from Social Security or from the IRS, and there's something in the email that isn't quite right. Usually there's a spelling error. It'll say irs.com instead of .gov. There's little things that the person with fully intact brain would notice. And so they will not click the link, right? But if you have that kind of like starting to see your brain, change a little bit, what can happen is you're more susceptible to clicking on that link. And they do that intentionally. They intentionally put errors in these emails because they want to eliminate people who have full capacity because they can't exploit them. They won't be able to, they'll figure it out right away. But once you click that link, what often happens is malware will be inserted into your computer. Or, for example, if somebody says there's a recall on your computer, I'll help walk you through the plugin that you need to put into your computer to fix this, or there's a software issue. Yes, very common. And so what they do is they actually insert this malware that can control cameras and microphones in your computer, even when your computer is closed. So they may stay dormant and just collect information for months about, what is happening. And I'm just looking, I'm kind of slowing down a little bit on the recording. Okay. So what's happening is this dormant exploiter and scammer is collecting information. They're collecting phone numbers. They're listening to your discussions with your bank. Maybe you're even using your social security number. But all of that information that they're collecting is going to be used when they finally make that contact with you. And they create a specific scam based on what they learned. So they call you and say, hey, I'm calling you from Bank of America. And, there's been this withdrawal made. It's going to create an event that costs you $25,000 because you'll be overdrawn. Do you want me to transfer money from this other account? And they may even be able to access your account on your computer to make it look like they have, in fact, transferred that money. That's how sophisticated these scammers are. And you will then fall victim to the scam. And then they are telling you, you have to go wire this money. You need to go today. You're going to be arrested, all these things. And what happens is we attach to the story or the delusion that it's actually true. And it's very difficult, even when you go to the bank and the bank manager is telling you, this is a scam. This is not real. And you have the exploiter on the phone with you because they've told you if you hang up, then all bets are off and they're going to arrest you. So yeah, it's quite dramatic and effective the way that these exploitation events occur. They're very sophisticated. We have a situation right now where we had a romance scam and our lady, the banks ended up figuring out that this was fraud while she was making these transfers. So they froze the assets. Could you believe that this scammer is suing her for payment of this money? And it wasn't until we entered we found out that this had been filed against this particular bank in New York that we, were able to kind of intervene and say, no. This is this lady's money. She's incapacitated. And then, amazingly, the guy disappears, right? So we withdrew his complaint and disappeared. But it's very sophisticated. We're talking about high amounts of money. And typically, they're going to target people who have wealth or who have exhibited wealth. But for your listeners' purposes, the key is don't get on the phone. Don't increase the value of your presence on the dark web by clicking links or becoming that person that wants to chat because you're having a rough day or, whatever it is. Don't pick up the phone.
Some of this, and we're speaking with Shannon Miller, an elder care attorney from Gainesville, Florida, an expert in these issues of scams and the use of scams and the flow of these scams into what is obviously elder abuse. Number two, a couple of quick questions. Number one, should I ever put my Social Security number on any type of email and send it electronically to anybody?
That's not where these scams are coming from. So I don't have the expertise to tell you whether or not that puts you at risk. I have never heard of that type of, emailing that is that they're hacking that. That's not where these scammers are focusing there.
Second question. Older adults, especially older adults living alone, and this unbelievable explosion of isolation, lonely.
Yes.
Are they basic prey to scammers who will get on the phone and they'll talk and chat you up and et cetera, et cetera? Is that true?
Yes. And so, let me kind of break down why it is that they want you to answer the phone and why it is that when you pick up the phone, the value of your information goes up. It's because they want to learn what makes you happy. If you lost your husband and you're looking for love, you're lonely. If you're a venture capitalist, if you were someone who did really well with investing, they are trying to learn, what is your currency? What scam can we craft based on what you're saying about yourself that is going to make you attach and feel, this sounds so silly, but I always talk about the void that's in your little heart, right? There's something in your heart that might be missing. And this scammer, especially for people who are lonely and isolated, lost their long-term spouse, the scammer can fill that void. And I will tell you, sometimes we have lots of clients who've been scammed in these romance scams. The filling of the void is more important than the money. And so they will say, I know I've had $2.5 million stolen from me. Whatever you do, I don't want to have to stop talking to Tom.
God. How impactful do you think artificial intelligence will be in making the scams easier? If that's the right...
Incredibly impactful.
Really?
So when you get, you're on the phone with your bank or you're on the phone with your investment company and they're saying, hey, we can take your voice and your voice can become your signature. That, in my opinion, and from the experts that I've spoken with, creates an opportunity for scammers to go directly to your bank, pretending to be you. Once they get that information about your Social Security number and how you normally talk to your bank and get access, they can start to use your voice for that purpose. So voice recognition as an identifier is, in my opinion, is a very dangerous tool to give to scammers. And that's another reason, don't get on the phone with people. They're recording it. And they're giving it to their mothership because these are sophisticated. There's always several operatives. There's the boots on the ground, there's the brain behind, and then there's all these worker bees. So, these are very sophisticated operations. And once the money goes to the scammer, it goes typically right now, the big place where it goes is Nigeria. It goes to Nigeria. When it goes through certain countries that don't have banking reciprocity rules with the United States, the trail of money gets lost and there's no way to track it. So once the money is gone, it is impossible in most cases to get back. We did just recover some money for a client because, again, the banks were aware that this was fraud. So we were able, in some cases, to kind of freeze these assets, even though it was a cashier's check. We were able to kind of stop it by using the banks to help us with that. But honestly, in most cases, once the money goes, you will never see it. So
Shannon, the obvious next question is, how can I stop that? What do I do? What do I do if I realize that I'm a victim of one of these scams? Where do I go? Is there a governmental agency? Do I come to my elder care attorney? Do I come to you? Do I throw up my hands, and what do I do?
So there's a few things. The first thing is, I have so many clients that come in, and one of the first things I ask them is, do you know anybody that's been scammed? And they all say yes. They all know somebody who's lost a lot of money from a scam. And so there's certain things that you can put into your assets to protect your assets, such as a trust-based plan with what's called a Ulysses clause that allows someone to take over as trustee when you start giving your money away. That's a simple resolution. Some of the other tools that are available, there's an app. It's called Careful, Carefull. And I love Careful. No, they don't pay me, but I talk about them a lot because they are such a good resource for people. So you basically have all your assets through the app. It's very good. It's a great, solid app. Haven't had any hackers or anything like that with it. It's been around for a while. But when you send money to a nefarious recipient, when you pay a bill twice, when you forget to pay a bill, their algorithm picks it up and they send out a notification to you and to your trusted contacts. So if you have a child or you have somebody who's agreed to serve as that person to kind of keep a watch on you, that is such a great opportunity to make sure that the money doesn't go out. Now, it doesn't freeze your assets down through this app. It just sends out that notification. So you're not feeling like you're giving away your rights to manage your own finances. It's just going to notify someone, hey, this might be a problem, this transaction that just happened. And then they can take a deeper look.
Is that a careful.com or .org or what?
Actually, getcareful.com, Get careful. And again, it's 2 L's. And so, the other thing that I want to repeat, because I know I said it before, when you get scammed, you are probably going to get scammed again. So I often have people say, I've been scammed, but I know what happened now, and it's not going to happen to me again. But the reality is the value of your information is more valuable on the dark web. You will be targeted more by scammers. And just remember, this is organized crime. They will send someone to your house. Okay? That's how sophisticated it is. The big one that we saw recently is, it's very common for somebody to come to your house and say, hey, your tree has canker. We need to cut it down. Pay us $2,500 now, $7,500 later. We'll collect it when we cut it down. And so you write the check. You don't think there's a risk. And they know that you're exploitable. The second thing that we've seen more recently in Jacksonville is using a publisher's clearinghouse van. They will come to your house and say, you won $1 million. And all you have to do is pay the transfer tax of $2,500, and they even have a big check. And they even have a little fake check that they'll give to you with $1 million once you give them the $2,500 transfer money. And so, they know you're exploitable because they found your name on that dark web. They purchased your information, and now they're targeting you even with.
Okay, so let me. I hope somebody doesn't say, "Well, where's Ed McMahon?" Could you just, because there may be some people who may not know what the term dark web is. So
yeah,
what's the Cliff Notes, to channel something from my college years? What's the dark web?
So the dark web requires a browser that is very challenging to find. So the law enforcement, sometimes they have access to these browsers, but they're very short-lived. So the browser is the key. And if you're a criminal, you can purchase the browser from other criminals who will sell it to you for a certain fee. But that browser gives you access to the dark web. And I actually had the good fortune of going on the dark web with someone from FINRA, which is like a regulating board. They actually took us into the dark web so we could see. And what was incredible is it will have a whole profile for someone's information to be sold. It will have credit card numbers. It will have dates of birth, social security numbers, and it's for purchase. So it's almost like a a retail website where you can purchase this person's information for a certain amount of money. And if these credit cards are closed, they even have a refund policy. So, honor among thieves. It's crazy. The dark web is a very nefarious place, but it's not hard to access. It's just that browser changes very frequently, so it's very hard for law enforcement to keep up with all of them.
If I'm the victim of a scam, do I go right away to the police?
I mean, you can. Certainly, I would encourage that. A lot of times we have, like, our Florida Attorney General does want you to make a report. Could you call the police? Yes. But what they're going to tell you is, we can't get the money back. We need a named defendant in order to prosecute a crime. And, there are some tools that we're starting to use. And I'll just take a moment to talk about one of the tools that the Florida legislature is considering this year. And that is that oftentimes we don't know the name of the exploiter, right? So we would call him Tom, but he's been communicating with our lady through Millionaire Match messaging or through Telegram or through Facebook Messenger or whatever it is, that this technique of communication with our person. So what this new law will allow us to do is to freeze the assets of this lady, or even to freeze a check that went out by using the same communication technique that was used to victimize our victim. So if it's Millionaire Match, then we can send what's called, a petition to enjoin or freeze the assets of our lady through Millionaire Match. And our judges then will be able to stop the bleed from happening. And the key in exploitation cases is to get to the money and freeze it as quickly as possible. That's really where the danger is.
So am I also to understand, because you live in Florida, and that there's 50 states and there could be 50 pathways depending upon which state you live in, so that if you're a victim, you really have to figure out, we're in New Jersey, what the laws of New Jersey and where to go and how to do that. Are there any websites, governmental websites, that somebody could go to at least to gather some information?
The attorney generals, of every state are going to have information about exploitations and scams. So New Jersey's attorney general, I'm sure, is no different. They probably have a place for you to make a report. They probably also have something called Seniors versus Crimes, where you can actually have a volunteer call you back to talk to you about what happened and to try and prevent these things in the future. I cannot overemphasize the problem of the exploitable brain and the repeated targeting and the repetition of being exploited again and again being really the true danger, because the initial outlay of $2,500 is a tester. Your information then gets sold to the bigger fish, who's going to target you with way more sophistication. So the next hit that you're going to get, it's going to be malware on your computer. It's going to be malware on your phone. And then that's where the real danger lies. That's where we see the high dollar exploitation events occur.
How important is social media in all this? I mean, you talked about telephone calls, but Facebook, Instagram, whatever, TikTok, whatever, and
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you that sometimes that can be the lead in to make the initial contact. So I think often, we're seeing this Facebook page is stolen. So you have an old friend, they ask you to connect as a friend, and you're like, what? I connected with them long ago, but okay. And so you agree, and then they immediately send you a message. How are you? That's a scammer. It's definitely a scammer. So, yes, be very careful. Make your accounts private. Public accounts have been notorious for allowing scammers to do that thing that we're talking about, which is to learn your currency. Oh, you have grandchildren here. You have, so make your account private and make sure you know every friend on Facebook. If it's a friend of a friend, no friends of
Shannon,
friends.
This is so overwhelming. And as you say, there's so many people who are going to get scammed this year. How can the public, where can they go to get the information of basically, here's a 10 checklist. If this happens, don't do this. If this are there organizations who are doing this? Are there books? Are there people, websites? Are there? Or is this everybody have to make, on their own?
No. AARP has a whole section on the current scams. They actually have, if you join their newsletter, they'll send out an alert when a new scam has come onto their radar. They do a lot of information giving about, ways to prevent exploitation and to prevent your information from becoming highly valuable. Some of the other places are the Consumer Protection, CPSC. It's a government organization. Elder Affairs locally, Department of Elder Affairs in your state will also have lots of information about exploitation and scams and how to prevent it. There's a whole wealth of resources out there, but frankly, podcasts like this are critical because it is such a morass of information that it's very hard for that one person to know what is best for me. So, information, in my opinion, and education before you become scammable, before you become exploitable, before that first, click on the link. And you and I were talking about, this issue of like, well, I'm super smart. I was a lawyer my whole life. There's no way I'm going to get scammed. And that is not how it works.
Yes, because I know, as we were talking, I know some people who fit that profile who were scammed.
Right. Yes. So and it's very
common. It would seem to me. So if we have colleagues who are watching this, heads of sisterhoods, brotherhoods, organizations within a synagogue, a JCC.
Yes.
Maybe it's worthwhile scheduling a conversation for your group or your organization around this, given the fact that 50% of the American Jewish population are over the age of 50. The odds are that somebody in your organization, congregation, group is going to be a victim of this, and maybe we should have the ability to at least educate our people that this is happening. So, and
let me just make one more suggestion, which is historically, our clients want to kind of keep their financial information private, right? So we have a lot of clients who come in and they've been exploited, or they're entering that time in their life in their 80s and 90s where this is likely going to become more of an issue. Bringing family members in and trusted contacts into the fold about what is happening is critical. Having these helpers that can help and being able to call them and say, is this a scam? And then being able to receive that information that maybe can prevent you from purchasing that gift card or sending that cashier's check.
Shannon Miller, thank you very, very much. This is sort of like a master class on what to watch out for. So I really do appreciate it. If you don't mind, if somebody wanted to connect with you, because we have people in Florida, what's the website for your office?
It is the MillerElderLawFirm.com. The MillerElderLawFirm.com. And on our website and on our YouTube channel, especially on our YouTube channel, there are a lot of videos just like what we just did available for someone to watch and learn more about the exploitable brain, and also just about how to prevent exploitation in general. So YouTube, it's still the Miller Elder Law Firm that has a lot more.
Shannon, thank you very, very much. You just take care of yourself. Stay safe. Good luck with the Gators. And
we need it.
Okay.
Put a prayer up, please.
Most of our prayers here go towards the Phillies and the Eagles, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what we can do.
Okay.
To all of you, thank you very, very much for joining us on today's edition of Seekers of Meaning, the podcast arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. Again, I'm your host, Rabbi Richard Address. We thank you very much for your time. If you'd like to make a suggestion or comment about the shows and ideas for future shows, please email me at rabbiaddress@jewishsacredaging.com. If you'd like to make a donation to support our work, go to the website, jewishsacredaging.com, and you'll find a conveniently located donate button. Just click on it and it's safe. Follow the prompts, and we're very grateful. Seekers of Meaning is produced at the Broadcast Center of Lubetkin Media, and a shout out to our producer, Steve Lubetkin. Thank you very much, as usual, Steve. Again, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We wish you to just much health and happiness and joy. And until we see each other again, be kind to one another. Shalom. Thank you.